570 Authorized Piping Inspector course. In this module, we shall cover the basic facts and you shall learn about how to apply for API 570 exam, what you shall expect during exam day, and exam time management and tips. Let's see first how the API exam question are developed. API uses subject matter experts to design the question. So once the question is designed, it's been reviewed by 3 other subject matter experts, and the main issue is to find out whether the question that has been designed, is it relevant, and is it clear, and is it something that the piping inspector needs to know according to the piping inspector job description. So basically they say they work backwards actually. So they start with what a piping inspector should actually know, and based on what he should know, that would constitute the reference materials, publication effectivity sheet that comes in the exam, and the body of knowledge. So what they expect from the inspector to know based on the job description. And based on that, all the questions are designed on that basis. API wants to verify whether as a piping inspector you understand the concepts, you have the knowledge, and you actually can apply them. So they don't want you to memorize things. If there is anything to memorize, it's basically called the practical type of question or awareness type of question that as a piping inspector you are expected to encounter on a routine day-to-day basis. So once the question has been designed, these are still pre-test question or non-scored question, and because the API wants to know if such question, new questions that has been designed, has it been, is it too difficult? Is it a reasonable number of people have answered it? Is it too easy? Or whether it's been challenged by the candidates, the people who attend the exam. And then once it passed that final test, it goes into set of the scored question data bank. Currently they have 1,000 questions in the data bank, and these are grouped by the area of scoring that we will explain. So every time you do an exam, not the same set of questions come, definitely not. There would be another set of questions that is coming. There would be a total of 170 questions, and out of 170 questions, it will be in 2 parts, closed book, which are 110, and then there is 60 questions in open book. And out of 170 questions, 140 are scored, and 30 are pre-test questions, they are not scored. And they are all shuffled together. So you have to answer all the questions because you don't know if the question you have answered is scored or not scored. And remember that 30 questions, the pre-test or non-scored questions, are the ones that we newly designed because API sort of add new question to the data bank and continuously and test them in the actual exam to see actually that it passes all the benchmarks as of the ease or level of difficulty, and also it's not been challenged by candidates, as I said before. Let's see how to prioritize and plan your study for API 570. Now you got a list of publication effectivity sheet and a body of knowledge that API provides you, so you know what to study, but then not all of them carry equal importance in terms of number of questions coming from them. Of this list, API 570 piping inspection code is the most important one. It is an 80-page long document, and around 75 to 80 questions comes from this alone. So this is the most important document that you should study, and at least twice, and cover page to page, end to end, because at least one question per page on average is coming from this. So this need to be read in conjunction with API 574, piping inspection practice. So 570 is the code and tells you the do's and don'ts and the rules. And 574 is actually the methodology or the practice, that how you do the inspection and what you need to keep in mind. So it's like a manual. And as a piping inspector, you most of the time use 574 practically. And the vocabulary are more or less the same. So it's better that you read this in conjunction with 570. So you should have around 70-75 directly from 570 questions, which is 80 page long, and the rest is practically 2,000 page, and you will get some 90 to 100 questions from there. Okay. So about time commitment. So obviously, if you have limited time to cover and attend the exam. So you want to use it in the most effective way. Our e-learning is 60 hours long. We expect to finish on average. Add another 20 hours for solving the practice questions. And have to concentrate on high scoring areas and build up on your weak areas if it is within high scoring areas. So as long as your weak areas is not in high scoring areas or topics, you are safe. You can spread it out. It's always better, to have a slow but continuous pace. For example, you can finish our e-learning course in a 12 weeks duration of 6 to 8 hours of study each week while you're working. We have a 24/7 course access, and you can study it while on the move, on your mobile or your desktop or laptop, or whenever you can. And we suggest that do not cram till the week, don't wait and then cram the whole thing in the week before. You'll be lucky to pass, but then you'll forget most of what you actually memorized. Let's see how the questions are set by API. So as I said, based on job description, they have chalked out the publication effectivity sheet that lists the documents and tells you whether which revision it is, whether it should be in its entirety read or whether some section to be read, and the body of knowledge that tells you what you are expected to know during the exam, what sort of question coming from the exam. So body of knowledge is very important. It emphasizes all those high scoring areas. API is actually testing you on basic level, and all they want to know that you know the basics, the vocabulary, the meaning, the concepts you understand. You can differentiate between relevant, irrelevant information. You know how to navigate through the codes and recommended practices, and you have basic knowledge of NDT, welding, damage mechanism, pressure relieving devices, repair, and obviously API 570 and 574, and welding. So the questions which are very definitive and it's been repeated a few times in the codes or recommended practices, the statements, these are the high probability that they are in closed book exam. Okay, And say the awareness type of question is, one could be that what is the temperature difference of a probe with ambient temperature of the environment, the maximum? And the answer is 25 degrees Fahrenheit or 14 or 15 degrees centigrade. Therefore, all these basic requirements of the codes and recommended practices, specific do and don't statements, important quantified statements, like the halide content or fluoride content of in PT test or in right content of in the water for pressure test, say 50 ppm. These sort of things, they are going to constitute closed book questions. But when you are asked to refer to a diagram or formula or table or graph, then it's an open book question. Here, still it is a simple calculation, but the important bit is how you navigate through documents. That means you should know where that piece of formula or a table or a graph, where you can find it, in which codes, recommended practice, and in which section. So it's very important that you can navigate through these documents. Again, something which is not short and crisp, like large paragraphs, several descriptive statements, we have concised them, and we actually told them in simple language in each lesson what they mean. So you don't need to memorize the legal version or the code version of it. In a nutshell, we have explained all this. And also please note that during the open book, the search button is disabled. So it makes it all very important to understand how the code and recommended practices work, the structure of them, and then you keep on practicing and frequenting them, so that during the exam it's easy for you to go and find the right piece of information. We have already highlighted them in the module 12, and also in the exam questions, mock exams, and we have noted the page number that you need to go to the code, and then especially on each lesson we shall be telling you what you need, which pages you need to be frequenting more. For example, ASME section 9, most of the answers you'll find between pages 170 to 190, and this is a 1,000-page document. So that should help you to navigate through the documents. Also pay special attention to the footnotes and captions in the tables and figures and charts. We shall be explaining this in the next modules, how to use these tables, how to apply them. Or to answer an open book question, again, in a nutshell, you need to find the answer in the code and then going through the codes. So it's better to, if you're using the codes in a PDF soft copy, which you will be actually will be provided to you during the open book exam, you can highlight them, and that helps you to go quickly through them during practice. Important pages. So again, I cannot emphasize more that you need to practice, because this is something that unless you don't practice, you will be wasting a lot of time during the actual exam going through them. So we would recommend the 3 phases of study plan. If you're a month away, up to a month away from exam date, read all the codes at least once and recommended practices, and concentrate on the highlighted text, which we brought in module 12. If you are 2 weeks away, concentrate on highlighted text and mock exam question provided, and the last week or a few days before the exam, just concentrate on the flashcards and pictorials and for easy reference. Time management during the exam. So closed book part, 110 question and 2 hours 45 minutes allocated time. And but we think you can finish it. Normally, most candidates finish it within 2 to 2.5 hours. To last 15 to 30 minutes, you can go and review all the questions. One book, 60 questions, takes a little longer, but the time allocated is 3 hours 45 minutes. So each question, on average, you have 3 minutes 45 seconds. Okay, so always keep a tab of the clock on the right-hand top corner of the computer screen, or it might be in the middle of the screen. It shows you the remaining time versus number of questions attempted. And then you can flag off the question. There is a flag off button. If there is anything you are in doubt, still answer it because there is no negative marking. And then go at the end and look at all these flagged off questions. Our mock exam question also we flagged off and timed them so that to simulate the actual API exam environment. So for closed book, you have an average of 1.5 minutes per question. And for open book, 3 minutes and 45 seconds. Okay, so this means on average, you should maintain the speed of answering the question 40 per hour for open book and 16 questions for closed book. This is excluding of the time to review the question. It should be faster than this then. It's always better to, complete each part 15-30 minutes earlier and then use the last few minutes or half an hour to review the flagged off question, yet that you ensure that one, you have answered all of them to the best of your knowledge, and two, you have not left anything unanswered, so you're not losing any chances. For example, if you start from question number 1 and proceed, if after 1 hour you are maintaining this speed, 40 open closed book, 16 question open book, that's fine. If you are behind, you have to hurry up. That means you're wasting too much time on particular questions. So those questions that you think you're wasting time, for example, if there is a open book and you're looking for answer in the reference documents and after a minute or two you still can't find it, make a note of it and then jump to the next question, because there would be lots of other questions that are easier and simpler and faster to solve, and you don't want to be short of time at the end, still left with many unanswered questions and you start panicking. So once you finished, you can go back to those questions that you find difficult. And also there are high chances that while you're looking for answer for other questions, you might actually encounter the answer to that particular question you have flagged up. Okay, so don't waste more than 2 minutes on any open book and not more than 1 minute on any closed book question. Just flag it up and jump to the next, and at the end you can, whatever remaining time you have, you can go back to them and answer them to the best of your knowledge. There is a useful button where you can, if any question absolutely wrong, so you can use the power of deduction. Anything is absolutely wrong, you can right click and strike it off, so you concentrate on a remaining question that are answers, possible answers that might be right, and select one of them. If you have no clue, just use your gut and answer them anyway, because there is no negative marking and chances are that you were actually correct. It's also very important to read the question carefully, because you might find some of the answers, you might jump to the answers and you find some of them are absolutely right. I mean, a valid statement is written in the court or recommended practice and you remembered it very clearly that this was there, but it might be actually the wrong answer And the reason is that maybe because it's irrelevant, because it's the question and the possible answer that you think is right is totally irrelevant to each other. It's not what the question is asking. So you have to read the question carefully and know exactly what is it asking, what is it talking about. Okay. So at the end, you can review, click the review marked question or review all, and look at all the marked or flagged off questions and see that you still think that there's a right answer you have given, or you can change the answer before your time is up. And if, then again, answer all of them, even though you have no clue at all. You might because then you might get lucky. Remember that the exam stops automatically once you run out of time or you end the exam. It's always better, even if you have finished the exam earlier, have another look and use the time allocated to you, and don't finish it earlier than the time allocated. So once the time is up, you run out of time, that part of the exam will be concluded. Okay. And also please remember that the minute you start each part of the exam, the clock keep talking. For example, it will not be paused if you go to toilet, or you go for drinking water, or you want to write a caption or a challenge a question or make a comment. So the clock keeps ticking until it runs out of time. Okay. Let's see. We have a classroom training. This is advice is more suitable when you attend our classroom training. But then you might also, find it useful information if you are opted to buy our online course. So you will be covering in the classroom training a lot of topics. That would be NDT, welding procedures, welding inspection. We will be covering all the codes and recommended practices, the damage mechanism, piping construction code, inspection practice, flange and fittings, pressure relieving devices, PMI, and etc. Plus question and answer session, and then we will be solving some sample question, and all this within 5 days. So as you can see, there is lots of topics to cover. So the idea is that anybody attending our classroom training, they already covered the e-learning, and they have just a few glitches to solve. This is just a refresher to quickly touch all the topics, the important parts, and if there is any glitches or any queries or any question they might have, they can resolve it there and then. So concentrate on your weak areas, make a note of it, and ask anything from our instructor during classroom training that it's not your forte, you're not very strong at that. And remember that nobody can become an inspector by just a few days of classroom training. But anyway, we have this hybrid learning. That means you got 3-4 months to do the e-learning course, and you're going to do the final touches to your study plan by attending our classroom training. So we think that's enough. The current e-learning is 60 hours, and allocate another 20 hours for solving quizzes, practice questions, and mock exam question. And so anyway, you have to analyze the area of knowledge that you're already competent, and also make a list of weak areas. So as long as your weak areas are not part of the high percentage exam question or high scoring areas, you are safe. Otherwise, you need to build up on that to an acceptable level. And we have also designed the question in such a way that complement your knowledge and be in line with the spirit of API exam, actual exam. Advice I would give you is when solving a mock or sample review question, you need to understand the underlying reason behind the right answer. Also try to understand why other answers are wrong. This is very important. So when the question comes within, in any context or within any scenario, or if it's rephrased, you still can answer it correctly if you know the concepts and knowledge, and you can apply it in any scenario that it comes. Okay. Study our e-learning regularly. Do not leave it until the day before the class or before the exam and then cram for hours. It rarely works that way. Remember that everybody is different. Follow the pace that you are comfortable with, and make notes on areas that you may face difficulty, and then raise them during classroom training, or concentrate on them and try to build up on them. Or if you have any still anything not clear in the e-learning, you can always use our WhatsApp line and ask us the questions. Our instructor shall be more than happy to help. Let's see about the percentage of exam questions per codes and recommended practices. So you have API 510 exam, you have 4 ASME codes, 31.3, 16.5, ASME 6, section 5 and section 9. And then you have 6 recommended practices, 571, damage mechanism 74, inspection practice 76, pressure relieving devices 78, PMI, PCC2, this is ASME again for repair of piping, as well as the all-important API standard 570. Okay, and you should appreciate the fact that they are not all equally important. Therefore, you have to study them enough to cover the exam questions according to the body of knowledge and publication effectiveness sheet. So you should be expecting 45 question coming from API 510, which is some 80 pages long, and the rest contribute to the 55% to some 2,000 pages that you're gonna study. If you look at this table, you can see that around 70-75 question comes from API 570 and the associated 574 inspection practice. Around 15 question comes from API ASME section 9 and API 577 welding, and around 10 question from NDT, another 8 to 10 from damage mechanism 571. Piping construction code is around 15 questions, and then around 8 questions maximum, I guess, from 16.5 flange and fittings, and then another 8 to 10 questions from repair and PMI. And then you should have general knowledge and safety. There would be another 5 to 6 questions. Now, API course certificates are API 570, 510, and 653. This is the 570 we're just talking about. The other 510 and 653, pressure vessel and above ground storage tank, they all have a few documents in common, and these are 571, 577 welding and inspection, 576 pressure relieving devices, 578 PMI, PCC2 repair of piping and pressure vessel, ASME section 5 and ASME section 9, NDT and welding. So approximately a third of questions for all these 3 core certifications are derived from these codes and recommended practice. And most of the inspector plan to get at least 3 core certificates. So it makes sense that once you pass one of them, you may go for the other 2 as well, since you have already covered roughly 1/3 of the other 2 examinations. All API examinations, including API 570, are held 3 times a year, and the window is 3 weeks long. The exam window for each time of the year, 3 times of the year. The exam window for 570 for year 2022 are February to March and then June to July, and then October to November. You can see this 3 weeks window on it. For the 2023, there would be more or less around the same windows or dates. The pass rate is around 55% for API 570. And Prometric is subcontracted by API to hold a computer-based exam. So once you register with API, you can open a free account and you pay the fees and provide the 2 references. Once the references verify your experience as a prerequisite for the exam, you will be given an API authorization email and a link to Prometric. And Prometric is active in 160 countries and has over 3,000 test centers. And so once you receive the link and the email authorization notice, book a slot to your closest test center or remote as you wish. And because this is very important, because Prometric works on a first come, first serve basis. And the deadline to get this authorization is normally 2.5 months prior to selected test window. For exam schedules and application deadline, you can click on this link, or you can go to API ICP, which this link also takes you to API ICP. And how to apply also, you can click on this link, and how to register and make a free account and pay the fees and upload your documents. So it's very user friendly. You can again click this link or go to API ICP. The fees is $940. Now for member fees, API member, $730. That's provided your company. Remember, your company, not yourself, are an API member. API does not give individual membership. So if your company is an API member, you can use this opportunity and pay some $210 less, but most of the candidates end up paying $940. Prerequisite. So the minimum qualification requirement for API 570 piping certification based on a combination of education and experience that has been earned for the past 10 years. And they have a table, and we have brought it here for you. So if you are a bachelor degree and with 1 year of experience on supervision or performance of inspection activities, you are eligible to sit for the exam. If you have an associate degree, a 2-degree in year course in engineering, you should have 2 years of experience. And these 2 years can be design, construction, repair, operation, inspection of piping, and out of these 2 years, 1 year must be in supervision of inspection activities. And as you can see, high school is 3 years, and minimum, which 1 year out of these 3 years should be on inspection activities. And same goes for if you don't have any formal education. So at least 1 year should be on supervision. So what happens is once you pay the fees, uploaded your documents, and told them about your experience, API, and then will contact your 2 references via email. It should be a company email. It's always better to sit with your references when they are received it. So it just takes 1 minute to do that, so that you are coordinated with these people who you provide as your references. There is no discrepancy here. And the minute they answered the API query regarding your experience, probably within a day or two, you receive a email authorization from your API that you can go and book the test with Prometric with a link.